morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where Disney is making not just one, but two progressive movies about old Saint Nick. That's right, Santa Claus. Now, we talked just about a month or so ago about their Kevin Hart as Santa movie, which I think sounds pretty good, but I think it's going to take all their efforts to sell one progressive Santa Claus movie, and I don't know how they can support two, the other being Anna Kendrick as the very first female Santa Claus. And that movie's going to be called Nicole. And for some reason, even though it stars Anna Kendrick and it's a Christmas movie, it's not going to be a musical. Although in the coverage of this announcement, people were like, maybe it will be a musical. I wouldn't be surprised if her team talks Disney into doing that. But this to me sounds like a Ghostbusters bad idea in terms of, I think it boils down to the casting. I think that, I was talking to a friend about this, and I said to them, Disney's making an Anna Kendrick Santa Claus movie, and they're making a Kevin Hart Santa Claus movie. And my friend said, well, why don't they just skip both of those and just make one with Octavia Spencer as Santa Claus? And I was like, Octavia Spencer would make a great Santa Claus. And then Disney could just focus on, getting the one to be a commercially viable film. And Santa Claus movies are a tough sell. Now, when this story broke, I believe I read the breaking news in the Hollywood Reporter, and their color commentary was, Disney's really great with Santa Claus movies. Look at the Santa Claus franchise. And while I will gladly admit that the first Santa Claus is a holiday classic, and I watch it every year, including this one, the second two Santa Claus movies were horrible. I think they suckered everyone into seeing the second one because the first one was so good. And then off of the strength of that box office, they made the third. But none of the follow-up films were anywhere near the quality of the first film. And that was made quite a long time ago. So good Santa Claus movies, only come along every so often. And I have to also add that Fred Claus, with Vince Vaughn and Paul Giamatti as Santa Claus. Kevin Spacey also stars. Rachel Weisz. It's Miranda Richardson. Such a good movie. Kathy Bates. That was for a different studio. And that was an unconventional movie. It was about Santa Claus's brother, who was on the naughty list. Such a great commentary on whether or not the naughty list should exist. I cannot recommend that movie highly enough. But the whole reason I'm bringing it up is that nobody went to see that movie. It was a big flop. I hope it's done well, on streaming and, every year during the holidays. I hope new people discover it and make it a part of their holiday tradition. But, you couldn't get it to a better Christmas movie than Fred Claus, and people didn't go. So it's hard to sell a Christmas movie, and it's even harder to sell an unconventional one, and it's even harder still to sell a progressive one. So I think, I'm glad that Disney, I certainly would say that they have a lot of capital at this point because they're so full of wind, and I'm glad this is what they want to spend it on. But I think they have to be careful. They have to make sure that the multiracial family, A Wrinkle in Time, is successful. They have like a lot of movies coming up. They're doing Will Smith for Dumbo, and these are big tentpole tickets. And to make sure that they do well and there are more that follow them, these have to be successful. So you can't go too fast. You have to pace yourself and make sure that you're able to focus really strong with your marketing department on each project. Although Disney's marketing department is pretty darn good. I have to also say there could be some good jokes with the female Santa Claus, whereas a female Santa, although I think today everybody's very careful about what they eat, but I think a female Santa would be like, please do not leave me cookies. Do not leave cookies at every house. It's not good for me. All right, so anyway, that's the first story of the day, and I'm curious, do you think that Anna Kendrick as Santa Claus is a good idea? Would you see that movie? What do you think of Kevin Hart as Santa Claus? Do you think Disney can do both? And if not, which one would you pick? And what do you think of my friend's Octavia Spencer as Santa Claus idea? And, she is an Oscar winner, and I think would give a lot of credibility to the production as well. And, potential Oscar nominee for Hidden Figures. All right, so anyway, that's the first story of the day. Now, the second story of the day, let's cross over to Disney's old nemesis, DreamWorks Animation. And the sad thing is that I think Disney's new nemesis, Disney and Pixar, is Illumination Entertainment. DreamWorks is having dark days, but they've just been acquired by Comcast, which also owns Universal, and also owns Illumination Entertainment. And I really think that it's too crowded over there. Now, I don't know why I think when you look at it at first glance, you're like, why would anyone need two animation studios? I mean, I guess the Disney Pixar situation worked out, but it was tough there for a while figuring out who did what. And I think it's still a little bit confusing to some degree, but Disney Animation stepped up its game, and so Disney just has two extremely successful animation houses. And I guess Comcast is hoping to have the same situation. Although if I had to guess, and animation is such a hot commodity these days, but I think that a big thing that motivated the purchase was Comcast acquiring the brands that DreamWorks has, which are still very potent. Kung Fu Panda, Madagascar, Shrek, How to Train Your Dragon. These are huge in terms of, television and, television animated series. You can use them at theme parks, cruises, all across the globe. You can, sell the rights to, like, candy companies. Oh, go buy some gummy bears shaped like the Kung Fu Panda cast. Ka-ching! So I think that was a big motivator. But anyway, they wanted Chris Meledandri to kind of be like the John Lasseter over there, to oversee both places, Illumination and DreamWorks Animation, which is, of course, what John Lasseter now does. He oversees Pixar and he oversees Disney Animation. But Chris Meledandri said, no, thank you. He's like, I feel like I'm still building Illumination. I'm really in the zone. His name is like in the front of the credits now these days. When you go and see an Illumination Entertainment movie, it says like a Chris Meledandri production. He's really trying to put his stamp on that and make sure that you know his name. So he's like, I'm busy. And Jeffrey Katzenberg, part of the deal was that he had to fail upwards, I guess you could say, although Jeffrey Katzenberg is such an animation icon at this point, considering how he helped with the Disney Renaissance, and he, built DreamWorks Animation, which for a while there was in the zone, that, he can hold his head high. I mean, the guy can only take $1 salary. He could afford to because he made so much money off of stock options, etc. So, multimillionaire, or perhaps even at this point billionaire, Jeffrey Katzenberg is the head of DreamWorks New Media, which includes Awesomeness TV. And I also think that when I went to see Sleepless last night, there was a trailer, which I haven't seen online, I don't believe, for an Awesomeness movie that they're producing. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So it looked okay. It was basically like a teen horror Groundhog Day. But anyway, so Jeffrey Katzenberg can't run DreamWorks Animation anymore because they were like, you kind of ran it into the ground, which I think is to some degree true. We all know that the real problem is their publicity department. Speaking of publicity, we just praised Disney for theirs. But anyway, the point of this story is that Universal, Comcast, has hired somebody to head up DreamWorks Animation post Katzenberg, and that's Chris deFaria from Warner Brothers Animation. But not just Warner Brothers Animation, he also heads up the VFX. He headed up the VFX department over there. So he oversaw the Lego movies and Storks. Storks is so good. If you didn't see Storks, watch it now. It's available on streaming. But he also oversaw the VFX for movies like Mad Max, Fury Road, and Gravity. So when I read that, at first I was like, are you sure Chris deFaria is, the guy who should take credit for these, successful Warner Brothers animated movies, right? I think it's the talent. I guess he found the talent or gave it the green light. But anyway, I thought that Mad Max and Gravity had such great visual effects that it made me think that maybe DreamWorks might, Illumination's very specific. They're like European zany, right, with their brand. So I think if you could maybe have DreamWorks maybe go a little more highbrow, like Pixar almost, with like maybe some ultra realistic animation, that could be really exciting too. So, but although I have to say, I think Boss Baby's looking better and better with each new trailer. So, who knows? I'd be curious. Do you see a place for DreamWorks at Comcast Universal with Illumination being there as well? And what do you think of somebody else heading DreamWorks Animation besides Jeffrey Katzenberg? It's fascinating. All right, now the third story of the day is about China, which of course has a very close relationship with DreamWorks because they have a facility out there and an entertainment complex. A lot of companies have a big relationship with China. It would seem that only Disney doesn't need it really so much, although they do release their films there. But a lot of companies, for instance, have taken money from China. China has injected a huge amount of cash into Hollywood, both in terms of investments and box office, because so many movies are saved over there. Look at Warcraft. And two of the biggest deals, so actually three big deals, are all at Wanda Group. They purchased Legendary for $3.5 billion. I think Dick Clark Productions was a $1 billion acquisition, and they invested a lot of money in Sony for their tentpole pictures, and they're going to see, Passengers is the first test of that to see if Wanda Group can get a lot of money for Passengers over in China when it opens there actually this coming weekend. Well, today. All right, so anyway, China, though, it seems, is trying to maybe slow this investment down, and that's bad news for Hollywood. Since 2016 was such a flush year, with Chinese cash, it might seem that 2017 would see that dry up, so that's pretty scary. So why does China not want their companies to invest so much in Hollywood? And let's keep in mind that beyond the influx of cash, this has resulted in a higher profile for Chinese and just Asian talent in general in Hollywood productions, and also a lot of movies are being shot in China. So there's a lot going on here. And of course, Wanda Group just built that giant movie, sound stage to shoot, a production facility. And now the Chinese government pulls this. But there's very good reasons why the Chinese government is doing this. The number one thing is that they feel that perhaps this is actually companies moving their money out of, and individuals who run those companies out of the country, right, to a more favorable financial situation, where also the Chinese government can't get it. It's invested in a different country and a different country's company. So if anything were to ever go down in China, theoretically, the Wanda Group executives could hop on a plane, fly to Los Angeles, and, they own Legendary, and they'd be like, okay, this is not so bad. So like that, so the Chinese government is worried about that. And of course, the Chinese government is a communist government, and so they have a particular ability to keep things to close loopholes, let's say. All right. Also, the other problem is that speaking of them being a communist country, and also a very aggressive country, we know whenever anyone talks about hacking, they talk about Russia and China. China has rising tensions with the incoming Trump administration. So that's another reason that they're going to say, oftentimes governments, because of, the weapons that are everyone's disposal these days, they, have other means to, put pressure on other countries. And there are such things as sanctions, etc. But you can also, close up, business channels, and then that would put pressure on the other country's government from the businesses within that country. So China can, turn off the flow of cash to Hollywood and hope that Hollywood will therefore then appeal to Donald Trump and say, could you please get the money to flow again. So that's what's going on, and so I think we could see perhaps a very different situation with China in 2017, and they of course have become a huge part of Hollywood conversations. All right, so those are the three stories of the day, and I have a really great viewer question from Daniel Ray. So Daniel says, question: Hey Grace, I really enjoy your videos. Thank you, Daniel, and I have a question for you. I just started watching The Crown on Netflix per your recommendation, and its big wins, the Golden Globes. I am really enjoying watching it, and I just read that it's the most expensive show ever produced for a single season. This is for 2 seasons at $130 million. You've said this is the best show no one is watching. On the night of the Golden Globes, when Claire Foy won, and also The Crown won Best Drama Series, I said, congratulations to The Crown, the best show that you're not watching. So I'm glad, Daniel, that got you to watch it, and I'm glad that you like it as much as I do. It's fabulous. So Daniel's question is, now I know Netflix doesn't release its numbers, but I haven't heard of anyone watching this show either. Now my question is, do you think that The Crown is considered a win for Netflix considering its budget after its big night at the Golden Globes? Do wins like that justify the production costs of a show like The Crown? So great question, Daniel. All right, so Netflix, first of all, has money to burn. That is how Netflix, because everyone pays just like $7 or $8 for their monthly subscription, but so many people have Netflix, so that's just so much cash. And one of the ways that Netflix has grown so quickly in terms of not just the content that they produce, but the talent that they're able to get and the executives they're able to attract is because they just spend the money. They're a little bit like China. There's no door that enough money can't eventually open. So they're poaching executives from Fox with better salaries. They're paying talent incredible amounts of money. They got Emma Stone and Jonah Hill to come over there. They're just throwing money at stuff. And and The Crown, of course, was one of those things. But yes, not a lot of people have talked about The Crown. To hear John Lithgow tell it, it's a big hit in the UK, but we just, we have to take people's word for it because, again, these numbers aren't released. So anyway, not a huge pop culture phenomenon, like let's say Stranger Things, right? However, Netflix really wants to become a huge, presence in the entertainment industry, and that also requires having awards wins. So I don't know if The Crown is going to be, it's supposed to run for 5 seasons. Each season covers 10 years of Queen Elizabeth's life. So I don't know if this is going to continue to be worth this expense, but I think so far so good. And here's why. This is the first show on Netflix to win Best Series, Drama or Comedy at the Golden Globes or the Emmys. They've been nominated for House of Cards, Orange is the New Black, and they win oftentimes in the acting and directing category and other categories, but never the big one, never Best Series. So for The Crown to win this really cements Netflix's position of prominence on the entertainment landscape. And it's also going to help them, lure even more talent, because it shows that they have a good awards campaign office. They can get you the prestigious awards that you want. Like, remember when Nate Parker said no to Netflix, even though they were offering him more money, and then went to Fox Searchlight instead for Birth of a Nation? Because before it imploded, it was an awards frontrunner. He felt Fox Searchlight would do a better job because Netflix hasn't won any film awards yet. So that hurt them. So now they can go when they try to get series. For instance, Annapurna just announced a Coen Brothers TV series they're doing over there, Megan Ellison. So now Netflix can aggressively try and get that and say, we can get you awards. So that's why that's very valuable. Now, even better is that it shut out HBO at the Golden Globes this year. For the first time, I think, ever, or at least in a very long time, HBO didn't win a single Golden Globe. That's a really big deal, because they had Westworld and Game of Thrones, and in the past they've dominated. So this was, I think, very, very embarrassing. I think that both Netflix and Amazon are tremendous, because of course, don't forget that Billy Bob Thornton's Goliath on Amazon beat out Better Call Saul from AMC. So the old school, well, not the old school, but for a while there it was HBO, AMC. Those are the big prestige cable networks. But now it's moving over to digital with Amazon and Netflix. FX is starting to get a little bit more of a contender too, but they're not doing so well on the wins. But that's just amazing. And also, Stranger Things also lost out, by the way, but Stranger Things is such a cultural success, and it's such a pop culture phenomenon with everyone talking about it, it didn't really need the win. I think the nomination was enough for Stranger Things. And The Crown, since nobody's watching it, I think, hopefully this will give it some momentum, and more people like you, Daniel, will discover it. Also, the cast will be completely recast. All the roles will be completely recast after season 2. That's because the characters are aging up. So they're not going to go with prosthetics, they're going to recast. And so with this kind of win, and Claire Foy picking up Best Actress, we'll see how it does at the Emmys. It wasn't eligible for the last Emmys that just happened a couple of months ago, so it'll compete in the upcoming one. But now maybe it can get even bigger names to cast in the roles as they get for season 3. So very interesting. And so I think that, Netflix, a lot of people in Hollywood resent Netflix because they poach executives, for instance. And a lot of you have sent me those stories about Fox. Actually, that's becoming a legal battle, in fact, because people just left Fox even though they were under contract. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I think that for now, definitely worth it. Will it happen again? I don't know if they would spend that kind of money again if they don't get enough eyeballs, but maybe they will after the wins. But The Crown was first. It got that very important win for Netflix, so I think The Crown was worth it. But we'll see. We'll see. They have they have a Brad Pitt movie coming up. As you might recall, they have that David Ayer, Will Smith, Max Landis, and Joel Edgerton, actioner, fairy tale actioner coming up. Those might put them on the map cinematically, in the film division. But TV wise, they're doing quite well. All right, they've always done pretty well, but this is a new level, and so they bought it. They bought their way there. All right, so write your thoughts down below. Great question, Daniel. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Please write down below, I think, today's top 3 stories, Daniel's viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered on Monday, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.